so tired of connecting through trauma. I want to connect through joy. I'm done always feeling this heaviness. I want to celebrate what we've accomplished. There were so many barriers put in front of us. Like, of course, we have to talk about that, but we can and should also talk about everything that we've been able to accomplish and celebrate that.
The resilience it takes as a refugee immigrant, whether you look at yourself like that or not, it's in your DNA. It's in our writing. Be proud of your culture, your heritage.
There's this term in the Cambodian community from surviving to thriving. So, we've gone through survival mode and now we're thriving, but we can't forget about what our ancestors went through.
Our kids are fortunate. I think what we're doing is really brave and not easy stories to share, right? Because it's opening up a wound inside of you that you're discovering now. The wounds are where the light comes in. Charipsu. Is that right? It's
Charipsu, Reet, honorary Khmer. Yeah, Charipsu. Saksavai. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm honored.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been, you know what? It's been sitting on my heart for a long time. All of this has been dreamt of years ago, and now it's literally in real time. The baby's been delivered. Now it's like time to parent. And that's how I look at this. And there's no manual for parenting. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's the message that keeps going in my head is like, done is better than none. Done is better than none. And it's not about perfectionism and the stories we tell ourselves. But can you share what Charipsu means?
It's a formal way of greeting people. So, you can say hello in several ways in the Cambodian language. We speak Khmer, and yeah, you can say Charipsu, Suslay, even hello. English is very universal now. So yeah, and you always greet with your hands too. Position also matters because you greet your peers like around your chin, mouth area, and the higher it goes, the more, I guess, respect. Because like to monks, it's like higher up, like by your eyes. Yeah.
That makes sense. Like our
I just learned that too. So yeah.
That's amazing. So can you start off by sharing where you live and where were you born and what your background is? Let's start there.
Okay. Well, I am in North Vancouver, British Columbia. It's just across the bridge from Vancouver, British Columbia, one of the most beautiful cities I think in the world. I've traveled to a few places, and yeah, I feel very lucky to live in this part of the world, in this part of Canada. It is pretty mild here, the mildest area in Canada. I moved here in 2008 from Hamilton, Ontario, and that's where we met. We met in high school, right? But prior to that, let me backtrack to the very beginning because working backwards is kind of hard. But yes, so I was born in a Thai refugee camp. My parents left Cambodia in 1979 after the Vietnamese took over the Khmer Rouge regime. And yeah, they fled in the jungles. My mom was super thin and weak, and my mom said she was eating leaves to survive. I haven't heard, I get stories from them in tidbits. But yeah, I was born in a Thai refugee camp in 1981, and then we immigrated to Canada in 1985. So June 1985, I was about 3.5 years old then. And I don't have any recollection of my time in the refugee camp. I have pictures and, I hear stories and tidbits and stuff, but yeah, no memory of my time in the Thai refugee camp. We lived downtown Hamilton in these apartment complexes called Stinson. I think they're still around. Actually, they're walk-up buildings, and there were maybe like a handful of them, and then they all surrounded like a parking lot, and that's where we played in this like big parking lot, and we'd hide and stuff. I have fond memories of my time there, but then something tragic
and this is in
happened
Canada
when I was in grade 4. Yeah, this is in Hamilton, Ontario. So from 3.5 to grade 4. How old are you in grade 4? Like 10?
Yeah.
8. Anyways, in grade 4, something tragic happened. And so we moved out of there, and I briefly lived in another apartment building, a higher one where it wasn't just walk up, you had to take elevators, but a lot of Cambodian people lived there too. And another family, they were kind enough to take us in. There were 4 of us, and there were already 5 of them in a 2-bedroom apartment. They took us in, and we lived with them for a few months before we were able to find housing that accommodated all of us. But yeah, I moved around a lot as a child. So I moved there, and then I moved to a public housing townhouse area. And then my parents and we stayed in a townhouse from like grade 4 to grade 9. So I wait, grade 9 or 8? Grade 8. Sorry, I went to middle school up in the escarpment. And my parents basically they wanted me to get away from the Cambodian crowd there because there were some issues with like gangs, and they didn't want me to be involved with the wrong crowd. So they moved us up to the escarpment. They were able to find another public housing, but this was a detached home. And the government wanted to integrate. They didn't want to ghettoize like a certain area. So we had this single family home detached in a neighborhood that is within homeowners, so like middle class families. And yeah, from grade 8 to till I graduated high school, that's where we lived. And I'd call that like my formative years, because a lot happened then, and I questioned a lot of things then too. But yeah, so I done high school, and then went to university in London, Ontario, and then I met my now husband there, first year university. And in 2008, I moved to Vancouver, and yeah, this is now where I live.
It's amazing. And you're a mother of 2 children, right?
I
Leah,
am,
Leah
yes.
and James.
So yeah, James, yeah, they are 4 and 7, and they are a handful. You met them. Well,
But
you know them very well.
absolutely. Oh, they're great kids. They're kids. They're literally like
Yeah.
healthy
Yeah.
kids that are living their best
Yeah,
life.
no, they
And
are. Yeah, we get comments from the teachers saying that they're doing very well, and I'm proud of them, and I'm proud that we've sort of um, we're introducing like healthier habits with them too. Like we've put them in a lot of sports, and um, Leah just finished her first grouse grind last week, and James wants to do it now too. So yeah, it's they see us doing it, right? So we model a lot of what we want them to do. They see us, working out and eating well, and the eating well part is not as we don't have that down yet because they're influenced a lot by their peers too. But I think, we do what we can.
yeah, they're kids. They're still gonna want, like us. We want to
Hmm.
enjoy a glass of wine or enjoy our treats or chips. That's
Yeah.
life, right? It's meant for the
Yeah.
finding the balance in
Hmm.
between all the wildlife. So I want to just share a little bit on your journey as you went to university. You graduated.
Hmm.
What did we study in? What did you study in university?
Yeah, so I've always been like sort of an indecisive person, but I am not one to like sit still. So when I did my first year of university, I was in a program called Media Information Technology. And, I was like, oh, maybe I'll do journalism after that. I don't know, maybe I'll teach. So I didn't do, I had the time of my life first year of university. I basically like it was a blank slate because I didn't know anyone there. I reinvented myself there, and I didn't have this like kind of embarrassment of being from working class. Everyone there is like very well off, and I was able to hide that I had financial struggles, and just because I've worked during my teenage years and stuff, and yeah, it was a time of my life, but I had too much fun, and I wasn't able to get back into the program because you have to keep a certain average during the school year. So I decided, hey, I'm going to do French and sociology because I was like, okay, well, I think I may want to teach, and French teachers are in demand. And yeah, so I took sociology with a minor in French. Do you
Wow.
want me to talk about like what I wanted to do after that?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
when I
yeah. Go right ahead.
graduated,
Go.
yeah, after I graduated, like 2 months before I graduated, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't want to teach. I don't think I have the patience to teach. I don't want to teach. So I'm like, frantically trying to figure out what it is. And like I said, I'm not one to sit still. So I'm like, okay, I'll just pick something and go with it. And what's the worst
Mhm,
that can happen, right? Like at least I didn't waste my time doing nothing. So I
mhm,
decided to enroll in a postgraduate program at Seneca College, corporate communications, and a an exchange to either Belgium, or I think you can go to Australia too. But I chose Belgium because they speak French there. But funny enough, I actually ended up in the um, Flemish side of Belgium, and I learned a bit of Dutch there, or Flemish, I guess that's the language. But yes, that was really fun too. And then when I graduated from Seneca, I did a bunch of jobs. I edited medical reports. I reviewed medical reports to make sure that they were in line with what the current policies and laws are of Ontario. What else? Oh, I worked at a marketing agency as a marketing assistant. What else? Oh my goodness, it's so long ago, right? It's like 20 years ago. And then, oh yeah, and I worked at a nonprofit for 6 months. Yeah, doing like communications work there. I was like a project manager, project coordinator there. And then, yeah, I moved here, and I'll I ended up at a travel agency, and I was in an administrative role. I just wanted to get something because I was doing temp
mhm.
jobs when I first moved here. And yeah, I told them at my review, I'm like, I can't do this. It's too boring for me. It's too easy. And so that's when he gave me a social media. My boss had said, hey, social media is getting big. Like, why don't you do social media first? Because you have the communications background. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, I did that for a couple years. But then I got bored, and it just wasn't for me anymore. Like I wasn't passionate about it anymore. And then I thought about like, okay, well, I was talking to my husband Ian, and I'm thinking about this for at least a year, right? Like, and he's like, well, what about wine? We like drinking wine. Why don't you go into wine? I'm like, huh, okay, let's see what I can do with that. So I took a couple courses, and I honestly didn't know what was available in wine. Like I wasn't willing to work at like I wasn't willing to work in hospitality because I just did not want those hours. And then at my courses, I met wine reps there that were taking it, and that's how I got into the industry. I took wine courses first, and yeah, then I just kept applying, and it took me a couple years to actually land a job in the industry. But now I work for an amazing company, like with an incredible portfolio with benchmark wines from all over the world, and they are very they believe in work. Like a lot of companies will say, oh, work life balance, that's what we're all about. Like this company not only offers work life balance, but like a lot of emotional support too. So it's like if something is happening, they are very understanding of what's going on. And I really appreciate that too, because um having that like kind of time to not just be like go 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 with your work. You do have other things, you have time to reflect on you and build you, right? And during COVID, that's what happened. I i i was, I had this existential crisis where I'm like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing this? I have my daughter watching TV while I'm trying to work. Like, life is more than this. And then that's kind of what prompted me to like kind of switch gears to not just focus solely on wine. Like I can enjoy my job, but other things as well. Like my job doesn't have to define who I am, right? So
Mm.
I I decided like, okay, well, what am I gonna do? I don't know if I want to like just, wine is not my whole life. I have other things that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about fitness. I even like thought about like personal training. I'm like, maybe I can be a personal trainer on the side. And I'm like, no, I don't have the dedication. You have all these conversations with yourself. But what really inspired me was the Black Lives Movement. And I followed a lot of accounts, and one of them had mentioned like, I'm so tired of connecting through trauma. I want to connect
Mm.
through joy. Like
Yeah.
I'm done always feeling this heaviness. Like I want to celebrate what we've accomplished, and because there were so many barriers put in front of us, like why are we just focusing on the negative when of course we have to talk about that, but we can and should also talk about everything that we've been able to accomplish and celebrate that. So that's where I got the idea. I'm like, oh my goodness. And that's where I got the idea for my podcast. It was just, a lot of moving parts. There's like, leaving a legacy for my kids. I want them to hear the stories of Cambodian people, because growing up we never heard or saw like successful Cambodian people on TV. So I wanted to offer them, a bunch, and offer them, but also, us, our generation, like these people to be proud of. Um, and filling a gap. That was the thing. I was like, okay, well, there must be other Cambodian podcasts. There must be Cambodian podcasts that talk about this sort of thing, right? So I wanted inspiration. So that's when I was like, oh my goodness, there's nothing out there like this, what I'm thinking about. So that's how I started it, because I saw a gap, and filled the it filled the criteria that I wanted. Like I wanted to leave a legacy. I wanted to connect through joy. And that's how we are. That's where we are.
And I just want to like mention that this is about Vanny is also a podcaster as well as a wine marketer, wine enthusiast. She also and social media personality. She is a podcaster, and she has this amazing podcast called KHMER Voices. And this has been a powerful um, part of your journey. You mentioned in like 2020 you felt like you had this existential crisis. I've been looking at
Mm-hmm.
the lens through it's an awakening. You had an you had a true awakening of Vanny, like who you are, who is more than all of these roles that we were and we tried to mold into. And I think what my from an outsider observer, what started to happen, and having been your friend for like over 25 years, is I noticed you peeling back layers of who Vanny really, going to inward towards your roots. And I think you birthed this
Yeah.
beautiful podcast because we can be everything that everybody wants us to be and fit these molds and titles, but until we come back home to where we came from and talk about the stories and the journey our parents and our ancestors went through to get us to where we are, I think that's where our real life journey really truly begins. um, and I
Mm.
want to share, like, I want to ask, like, how has being a Cambodian refugee, what does that mean to you in your motherhood and your creator life? Creating what you're creating right now and birthing like this new legacy.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't call myself a social media personality. I did social media for work, but I'm hesitant to put a lot of things personally online too. I don't really like sharing personal things of myself, but I did work in social media for companies. But yes, in terms of being like a Cambodian refugee, I had no understanding of that growing up, because and I didn't never identified as a refugee. Like we got our Canadian citizenship a few years after we landed in Canada. I remember my parents, and I think that's where I got like a lot of my uh, studying discipline from. They were they not only like wrote out answers to, the tests that they would ask for your Canadian citizenship, but they also listened to it on a tape. I remember hearing, they would listen to it every day on the tape, and they would repeat what to say after a certain question. Yeah. But yeah, so I never identified as a refugee. I identified more as sort of like a Cambodian person living in Canada. But so I never really, saw myself as truly Cambodian, because I lived in Canada, and I'm exposed to these different, uh, I'm exposed to like different cultural norms. There's
Hmm.
something at home and within the Cambodian community, and then there's like living, going to school, and and sometimes there were culture clashes, and I couldn't
Conflicting.
reconcile that either. Yeah, and it was just, it's hard as a kid, to explain to your parents like why you want to do certain things. And I remember, I was just telling Ian this. I'm like, yeah, I remember like when I was 12, because my parents wouldn't let me hang out with the neighborhood kids because they thought they were going to influence me negatively. So I was like I remember being very depressed. And I think as a teenager, you're just naturally super emotional anyways. I was what, 13, 14? Yeah. And I was just coming of age too, and I wasn't allowed to do anything, and I had to be super responsible and take care of my baby sisters. Basically gave up my childhood to my summers to babysit them, while my parents went to make even more money because they were always working. And in terms of like how that affected me in motherhood, I feel myself doing that as well. I'm constantly working, I'm constantly doing something, and I expect them to know how to entertain themselves. And which is, I sometimes feel bad that I'm not more engaged, but I don't know. I don't know how to, maybe because I never learned that growing up either. Yeah. Um,
Absolutely. It's
I
learned
mean, there's a lot of
behavior,
good
right?
things, a lot of good things. Hmm. A lot of good things, obviously, that my parents, they raised me as best as they could, despite the trauma that they experienced. But I do find like a lot of things, like I'm just sort of, yeah, repeating what they've done, and I'm more cognizant of that now too. When I had kids, when I didn't have kids, you never really question that, right? So
Nope.
I saw that I'm more like my parents than I actually thought after I had kids, because I had a short temper, and growing up, both my parents had short tempers. Um, the yelling is, I'm trying, that's what I'm working on too, like gentle parenting. Um,
Hmm.
because I didn't really have that either. Like there were, it's in the Cambodian culture, like maybe not now, but definitely back in the day, there was, spanking and getting chased with a
Hmm.
chopstick. Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah. What
mhm.
you're doing is you're rewriting history. But in order to rewrite history, I truly believe we have to understand where we came from, why our parents um, did what they did. They had I from being in this, you know, environment, being grown up with a lot of Khmer and being also an immigrant myself, they worked one, two jobs, weekends to make ends meet. And when they came home, it was like late at night,
Mhm.
and they believed they were giving a better life, and their job was to provide food and stability and get an education. So they had already
Mhm.
broken their generations like way like expanded on what they grew up in a village. So now they've expanded, and I think it's our duty and our responsibility more for now to change at emotional level. Now do the emotional work and
Mhm.
emotional healing that they couldn't do because the trauma is just so intense from escaping a war. And
Mhm.
you have had the space to kind of, okay, grow what kind of understand what safety is at a physical level. maybe emotionally we still carry scars, we still carry wounds and triggers, which allows us to become more aware. And this allows us, like, as learned and learning a lot of psychology and doing a lot of self-healing work myself, it's the awareness is the door to expansion. And then once we have that awareness, practice is what creates the change. So you're doing it in real time, real life to your kids, saying, I want to do softer parenting. Our parents didn't even know what that terminology meant. And not because they didn't care, not because they didn't want to be softer parents. They were in survival. And to have, I think it's being compassionate on yourself and making sure we hold that space for our parents has been becoming a parent. That's what's meant for me, because I felt so angry and being like, why wasn't it different? Why did I have to grow up so fast? Questioning, why did I have to raise my siblings? I wanted to be a kid and I didn't have a childhood. And I know you can relate to that. And I think that what happens now is we allow that child inside of us to be birthed, because we can't move through this pain if we don't acknowledge and move through the pain. We can talk about it. And a big saying that I've been taught is you got to feel it to heal it. And if we don't feel it, literally, science has proven the trauma is stuck in our body. And it manifests into disease, and it manifests into all kinds of mental illness, physical illness. And I think what you're doing is brave, Vanny, because knowing you, coming from where we came from as 17-year-old girls to where we're living, sitting here in our 40s, and opening a box that truly touches nerves in ourselves, that triggers us and creates these emotional responses that we maybe weren't sure about, right? We thought we were going to come into this and share other people's stories. The truth is, our story is their story. We mirror the people in our life. And the people you interview, they mirror back to you a part of you that's not healed. And you ask those questions now. Please share, please.
Yeah, it's been very therapeutic and cathartic to hear other people's stories. Not every story is like mine, but there are parts of it of every story that I resonate with. And to actually hear someone talk about, what they've been through has been, it has been like therapy, and it's allowed me to kind of identify what it is that I was feeling too, because before I couldn't find the words for it.
We heal in community. Isolation breeds to illness, and living in Hawaii here, the culture is really, the Hawaiian culture is about community and village. We're not meant to go at this alone. And we are meant to talk. They use the term talk story. Talk story is healing, because you bring it out to share with everybody. You bring it out so no one person feels alone. And from what I can see, and I've listened to your podcast and heard stories of tons of Cambodians, they're scared. They don't want to voice it. They think it's in the past and we should just move on and have these big careers and go. But what stops us is not recognizing and acknowledging our journey, our ancestors, and how it got you here. It made you who you are. You have a resilience that is built in, that there's people that will never understand the resilience it takes as a refugee immigrant, whether you look at yourself like that or not, it's in your DNA. It's in our
Mhm.
it's in our writing. It's in our, like, we don't have to stay there, but we got to be able to move through it where we can talk about it and be proud of your culture, your heritage.
Yeah, there's this term in the Cambodian community I've seen being used often now is from surviving to thriving. So, we've gone through survival mode and now we're thriving, but we can't forget about our like what our ancestors went through. And honestly, like I never really connected with the Cambodian culture because I was kind of removed away from it as well. Like I was only surrounded by white people and maybe like
Mm-hmm.
a sprinkling of people of other ethnicities. And I just wanted to be accepted as, this Canadian girl, but I didn't look like one.
Yeah. I can still relate
Yeah.
to that because I also lived in a predominantly white community, and my father did the same thing, totally extracted us from anything Indian, plopped us in a very suburban neighborhood, and there was nobody looked like me. There was one of five kids that were
Hmm.
like ethnic, that a different ethnicity in my high school, and I wanted to become like be uniform. I wanted to fit in. So
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
also came with the fact that I had to disown a part of myself and hide and almost feel shame. I don't want to smell like Indian food, or I don't want
Hmm.
to bring that to lunch. I don't want to, I don't
Hmm.
want to, the color of my skin, I want to keep it light. I don't
Hmm.
want to, I don't want to stand out. I don't want to draw attention to myself. And I would
Yeah.
literally, now looking back, make ourselves smaller to
Hmm.
conform into the boxes that we never fit into.
Yeah. 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 Cambodians in general are really good at blending in. Like we don't really, we're not many people know about our story, even though, I mean, I think people know more about what happened during the Khmer Rouge genocide and they are aware of Angkor, which are the two things that people know us for. But I think like as like a population in general, they don't really know about our culture either. And yeah, I think that we're really good in blending in. And I with my podcast, I do want to. I don't want to blend in. I want to amplify like the fact that we're friggin' badass.
And so,
Yeah,
how do you share that with your children? We both have a mixed race. We're in a mixed race
yeah,
relationship, and our children have this whole new life, different, but yet we both come from rich cultures.
yeah. So here's the thing: I haven't really explored my heritage until just recently. Like when I started this podcast, and like there was something in me, like I'm just like, hold on, there's something more. Like, who am I? And so it wasn't until I started this podcast, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know the stories. I'm not an expert in the history of Cambodia or the heritage or the culture. And I'm learning. I'm learning what things mean and, you know, um, what certain traditions, why we do certain things. And so I haven't taught my kids that. They're only 4 and 7, right? So I'm introducing
Hmm.
them to uh like I bought a coloring book and we have like Khmer paintings throughout the house as well. Um but they know that they're Cambodian. I'm learning too, and when I learn something, I'll pass it on to them. But right now I'm sort of like in learning research mode. Um yeah, I'm rediscovering myself right now. I
Good.
can't really pass on anything to them right now at this time. But I know that, when they're older and they have questions, I'll be able to answer them. And I want to be more fluent in Cambodian too, in the Khmer language. Um, I think it opens up a lot of understanding because as someone who speaks multiple languages, I know that there's certain things that you can't really communicate in English. every language has its nuances, right? And not only that, but it opens up you get a better understanding of how like certain cultures, why certain cultures operate a certain way too. Like for example, I saw this somewhere and they're like, it's funny, in the English language, a lot of what is associated with success is very violent. Go smash him. Oh, you killed them out there. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's eye opening, because I never really thought of it that way, right? But it was someone who speaks a different language that pointed that out, because my language now is predominantly English. So that's why I want to learn. I mean, there's multiple reasons why I want to learn Khmer again. I'm at like a grade 1 level, because basically I learned how to speak Khmer, and then, you enter kindergarten, grade 1, and you don't want to be Cambodian. You want to like speak English like everybody else at school. So I forgot the language, or I didn't really forget the language. I stalled. So I'm stuck at that grade 1 level where, it's very elementary. But I do want to speak more eloquently, more fluently. And so that's been a goal of mine too, just so, I can understand our culture more, but then also be able to communicate better with my parents. I want to hear their stories, because English is not their first language. And if they can communicate to me in their native language, then there's no barrier for them to tell me their full story.
Mm. I'm so inspired by you by that, because I relate, because I stopped speaking Punjabi probably 8 years old, and 30 years
Mm.
went by where I didn't speak to anybody, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't lose it, but my level's at an 8 year
Mm-hmm.
old, and it was always in my brain. And when I went back
Mm-hmm.
to India 2 years ago, this survival instinct kicked in to find more information, and I'm like pulling out words from everywhere. And my
Yeah.
daughter looked at me like, "You lied to me. You never told me you could speak another language." And I was like, "Oh, babe, I didn't lie. I literally thought I kind of forgot, so I didn't make any
Yeah.
effort to mention that it wasn't even relevant." And she's
Uh-huh.
like, "Mom, you're talking." And I realized then that if I can do that, I can tap into a power within me to expand on that, right? Like we can totally learn and train our brains with
Mm-hmm.
anything at any
Oh,
age.
100%.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm excited, because you taking Khmer lessons has inspired me and kind of planted a seed for the future to be explore the languages, because like you in high school, I
Mm-hmm.
loved learning Spanish, French, Italian, and we have a tongue for it. I think just hearing you and being traveled around the world, you and I, we have a tongue for it. And I think that's birthed when you come speaking a different language and then you have to learn English. You don't lose that skill.
Mm-hmm.
It's there in your body, and your tongue remembers
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how to. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good season to explore that.
I know someone who learned Khmer. He speaks, reads, and writes Khmer. He didn't learn, he wasn't taught any of it growing up either. He just took it upon himself during COVID, actually, to learn the language, because he was just like I guess it's funny that we're kind of going through a renaissance right now, and I don't think it's just
Yep.
exclusive to Khmer people. I see it in other ethnicities as well, where we are very proud of where we come from, and we're keen on learning more about our roots. And assimilation is not the thing anymore. It was in the 90s, where you want to be the same, you want to be white, you want to like I you know digressing a bit, but when I was in grade 6, now I love my lisp, I love my full lips now, but when I was in grade 6, there was this girl who had light brown hair and a sharp nose and like thin lips, and I thought she was really pretty, so I used to go in front of the mirror and like tuck my lips in because I wanted to look like her and like kind of like squeeze
Yeah.
my nose out. Yeah, yeah, it's insane.
I truly believe the education system wants to do that. They want to,
Mhm.
whether right or wrong, it is the situation where they want to pump out like all the same. Get out there, go worker bees, go produce,
Mhm.
and like you said, the Renaissance is we're awakening to becoming creators of our own reality. We don't want to be working
Mhm.
for somebody else for our life and a paycheck. I think that our parents broke the mold for their parents, and now it's our job and responsibility to show our kids how you can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Our
Mm-hmm.
uniqueness is our superpower. Like, I don't, the
Mm-hmm.
more I'm aging and getting grays and wrinkles, the more I want to embrace being me, because I want to see what I change and evolve into. I'm loving my
Mm-hmm.
skin as I
Mm-hmm.
age, and it took 45 years to
Yeah.
get here, and I'm damn proud.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I know. I'm just feeling like, in my 20s I had lots of fun. In my 30s I still continued the fun, no kids, and you know, making more money. But then in your 40s you're just like, what is the point of all this? What is the point of all this? And then when you have kids, it amplifies that even more. You're constantly asking yourself this too. And yeah, and I want them to be proud of being part Cambodian. They don't know anything about Cambodian traditions. So we're actually headed to Ontario in August, and I'm hoping to introduce them to some of the stuff that are in my parents' house, and they can start asking questions about it. Because yeah, at daycare like they ask us to share. They ask the kids to share anything that their family does in certain traditions, and I think back in the day that wasn't the case before, but now it is. Yeah. And they just expected. It's funny because I remember the teacher asking me one time, they went all, and so mind you, background info, we were poor. Like I didn't get new
Yeah.
clothes every September. I I didn't get any of that. I didn't get birthday presents. um, but I remember the teacher going around and asking every student, so let's talk about your Christmas. What did you get for Christmas? And I made up a lie. I'm like, first of all, we don't even celebrate Christmas, right? And secondly, like why would you assume that I would get something, because some
Mm.
families can't afford to, right? Anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
I said that I got a new bed. I just had to make something up, and it's not like it's something I look back on with, I don't know, sort of. I look back at it now and I'm like, oh my goodness, it wasn't super uncomfortable or anything, but it's just like I asked the question, like, why did we even have to talk about that? Like, why weren't they more aware that there's other cultures and other religions that are being practiced, and not everyone like celebrates Christmas?
I realized that's when I started to put on a mask and started creating a story that wasn't real to fit in. Like,
Mm,
just like you said, I got a
mm,
bed. You created a story to fit in, and after that, if I remember doing a timeline of my life just because I'm curious at an awakening of starting to notice where I'd started to like digress away and away further from who I really am and was, and today, but I created this whole other identity so that I can feel safe in these spaces. So I can,
mm,
show
mm,
up and
mm,
turn fake it till you make it, because my dream was huge. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. So I was like, okay, we're going to do this.
mm,
We're going to put on those brave pants and pretend like you're not scared, and that your family didn't just scream and yell at you, and didn't have like are scared where the money's going to come from. And
mm,
it's I can relate to that, and I think so many people will relate to that, especially immigrants
mm,
and people of that didn't have a lot growing up, and that Christmas and Easter and all of these holidays our kids just expect. They didn't even
mm,
exist. We created them. We created a story
mm,
around them, so that we can feel special for a minute.
mm, mm.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, our kids are fortunate. I think what we're doing
Mm,
is really brave. I think what you're doing and discovering and sharing stories of um, specifically culturally, your culture, and not easy stories to share, right? Because it's opening up a
Mm-hmm.
wound inside of you that you're discovering now. And, but the wounds are where the light comes in. That's
Mm-hmm.
recently reading a lot of self-reflection books is like our wounds are the entryway to where the light comes in to expose and share the deepest part of ourselves that people resonate with, that people are like, oh my God, I felt that too. That allow us to in community feel like, oh, we're not so different and we're not so alone. I, as an Indian girl, like I don't fit in and I'm too big. I'm too much. And once I share that, I realize how many other people came forward and said, I felt like that. I shrunk myself to fit in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you don't realize until you start opening these doors into yourself. Um, so, I'm proud of you, Vanny, and I'm so honored to watch your journey unfold. And, you know, you're doing healing in real time, and that's no easy task. And you're doing it not
Mm-hmm.
behind closed doors. You're doing it in a platform that is very public and people have access to, right? It's one thing to
Mm-hmm.
journal in your room. It's another thing to put your voice out there and your art and your creation out there. And I think you're an inspiring human, and I'm so honored to be your friend. Um, and yeah, let's get back to your podcast because I want to know where that's going. What do you see? Because I think it's important to discover the artist, but now I also want to discover your artwork.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see that molding into? Where do you see that for your future?
I still don't know. I'm just I'm only in 15 episodes in, and I'm doing this on the side as well. So right now I'm looking at it as a part of my healing, and I didn't go into
Mm.
it thinking that was going to be it, but now it is, and I want to continue that as long as I can too. But I want to in the future. I do want to continue highlighting the stories of Cambodian people because through story specifics, you connect the mass, right? Because if you're just trying to connect with everybody, then there's not going to be any connection. But when people can
Mhm.
pinpoint what it is, like when you describe your story as a Cambodian immigrant in the US, in Australia, in Canada, they can see similarities in their story too. And they don't even have to be Cambodian to identify with that. And it shows that, the pains that we go through, even though they're situation specific, they're also universal in how they make us feel. So I want to continue that work because I think it's good for me, and it's also good for the community. I mean, that was the main reason why I did it, was for the community, and I'm learning a lot through the my guests as well, because a lot of them are super passionate about not only the Cambodian culture, but supporting the rest of the community in whatever way that they can. And it really does feel like a community. It doesn't feel like I'm forcing this or anything, and I love that. So I'm going to continue doing that. And there is talk about, like, it's separate to my podcast, but it was a result of my podcast. Like, we are planning an event in October to celebrate Cambodian culture in Vancouver, because there's nothing that has been done like that in Vancouver. I can share more details later on, but like right now we're in the like pre-planning stage. We're just trying to get the big details done first. Then we also would like to, when I say we, it's someone that I met through my podcast, and um, we have this desire to create an in-person community in Vancouver, because a lot of Cambodian people are dispersed in the lower mainland, and we don't have like this community feel like, say, like Lowell or Massachusetts, or even like uh, other parts of Canada. Like Toronto probably has some sort of community center. But yeah, we want to start a nonprofit as well to continue sharing our heritage. We don't want it to get lost. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
Cambodians do have like mixed race kids, and obviously the dominant culture will always be there, right? But
Mhm.
the minority culture, it's we do have to keep pushing to be heard and be celebrated, because if we don't do it, then it's the next generation's going to stop. The next generation's not going to know anything about that part of them.
Mhm. Yep. Do you want to leave a legacy for your kids, you know? And it's so they know where they
100%.
came
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
I
100%.
feel that
Yeah.
calling as well as a parent, as a woman, but as a human. Like, I want them to embrace both sides of themselves, like their father and
Mm-hmm.
me, because it is a
Mm-hmm.
richness that makes them who they are. And when you don't run from who you
Mm-hmm.
are and you honor that, that's when like you create inclusivity. You create conversations where
Mm-hmm.
uniqueness is amplified, where you create
Mm-hmm.
diversity. And there's a spot at the table for all of us. It doesn't have to look a certain way or feel a certain way. The conversation hits different when you have different voices from different experiences
Mm-hmm.
and lived experience, right? Or whether that be
Mm-hmm.
through your
Mm-hmm.
parents or your own. I think you create from a much more expansive way.
Yes, I want to leave a legacy for my kids, but I also want to show them that like I've done a lot. Like I've done a lot of career changes. Like it seems like every 10 years I'm like, "Ooh, what do I want to do? What do I want to do now?" And I don't know if podcasting is going to be a career, um, but I'm enjoying it right now, and it just feels right to do it. So like I'm always one to be like, I didn't waste my time in, marketing. I'm using those skills that I learned right now for my podcast and for my current work too. I didn't waste time learning about wine. It brought me joy. For that time, it brought me joy, and it still brings me joy. And I'm just doing, like, it's not a waste of time if you decide to change paths,
No.
if you got joy from it. And yes, you've gotten skills along the way from that too. Like I was just thinking about, like, yeah, my time in wine, and I wouldn't have met all these incredible people, and one of them is Laura Catena. She is the head of Catena Wines in Argentina. So she is a trained medical doctor. Like she used to work in ER, but I think she's since retired from being a physician, but she can still go back to working as a physician. But for a long time, she was a physician. She ran a winery. She wrote books. She marketed her wines, and she's done, and she's a mom and also a wife and a daughter, right? Like she wore so many hats. And I looked up, and I never really thought about, I was just like always envious of people who could always do it. And one of the questions that she was asked was, how do you do it all? Like how do you do all this? Like you make it look easy. She's like, actually, you know what, I approach things like, okay, if if I want to get something done, good enough is good enough. Like B plus is good enough. It doesn't have to be A plus all the time. The only time that it needs to be A plus is when you're treating someone, when you're a doc, when you're a doctor. You need to get that right. But everything
Yeah.
else, it's like, okay, well, my daughter forgot her soccer shoes. Well, she can just wear her regular shoes that she's wearing right now. Like it just, yeah, you just gotta, don't sweat the small stuff and just get it out
You
there
pick
and
your battles.
create.
You pick your battles.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
So
love
it
that
was very
because
enlightening to hear that. Yeah.
more women need to share that, because there was this whole perfectionism and we need to be successful at everything and have all the balls juggling at the same time, to the detriment of our
Mm-hmm.
mental health and our wellness. And we
Mm-hmm.
get burnt.
Mm-hmm.
We're burnt out. Most women I talk to at
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
stage in their lives, they're having an awakening because it was due to a burnout,
Mm-hmm.
because they
Mm-hmm.
let themselves go.
Yeah.
They stopped taking care of them, and even pursuing anything, they got down to the motherhood. There was a career that was put on them, that we're active parts in it. We chose it, but we kind of lost lost ourselves along the way on this magical checklist that we're supposed to
Mm-hmm.
accomplish. And if it stopped being about the
Mm-hmm.
love of it and the joy, what brings us joy, it started being, I got to get the destination. I got to get there. I got to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I definitely appreciate that. So what helps you to kind of keep your mental health in check as a mom,
Oh
as
my goodness. I've always,
in your career?
yeah, I've always been like an active person. You and I used to go for runs after work, and that was always a part of my day that I looked forward to. Because even in the snow, we ran in like 4 feet deep snow, and like we were badass.
Literally. Yeah, we were. And we still are.
um,
We still
oh,
you
yeah,
signed up for
in a different way.
half
Yes.
a marathon.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a half marathon. I mean, I've ran a couple half marathons now, but I always try to beat my previous time. But I find that, yeah, exercising helps a lot, and honestly think sometimes a good cry helps too. Like you just
It's a
need to,
release. You have
if
to
you're
get that
feeling it,
release.
yeah, let it out. Yeah, just let it out.
Yeah.
Don't try to keep it in. Um,
No.
and I talk to a lot of people too. I journaled a lot during COVID because, you're isolated. And at that time, I was
Mhm.
sort of trying to figure out what it is, like, what the heck? A lot of self reflection during the COVID time. Um, but
Mm.
yes, I think exercise is just like it's a free way to do it. Just go for a run, go for a walk. When you hear the birds, that's like super relaxing too. And I think there's like a science
Nature.
behind that because back, yeah,
Yeah.
back in the day, like it was a sign that it things are safe, like there's nothing like nothing trying to hunt the birds or anything, so it was a sign that that area is safe, so your mind just is relaxed. So I try to go without headphones for a bit on my run too, just so I can hear the birds.
I
And
love
yeah,
that.
relax. I think that's the easiest way to get it done. And I think that, well, I struggled a bit with maintaining a routine, like a maintaining a workout routine. So for me, everyone works differently. Like my husband, he doesn't need to do that, but I do. I think like I need to sign up for something. Otherwise it's just like, oh, well, whatever, I'll get it done when I get it done. But for me, I need that timeline, and then I have a plan that I follow just so I can meet that goal and timeline. Yeah. So yes, that speaks to my mental health, and yeah, talk and hanging out with friends too. That's something that I need to
Mm.
get back to doing. I'm kind of like, I was so focused on my podcast.
You got to have fun while you're doing and living, because that's what's,
Mm-hmm.
especially this year, I've realized I love what you do, but add that same love into your own cup. Go and laugh
Mm-hmm.
and create and be silly and share and challenge yourself to get out of your comfort zone. And that's been kind of a motto, like do something small. It doesn't have to be hard. Something challenging every day. The other day I had to take a lizard
Mm-hmm.
outside, and I was like, "Oh my." Like, but I would have asked my husband to do it, and I was like, "No, today I'm doing the hard, because I'm
Yeah.
training my brain. I'm training my brain because that I can do this." Yeah, I squirmed, I'm
Mm-hmm.
freaking out, but I did it. And you know what my daughter said? "Mom, you did it. You did it. You didn't get dad to do it." I'm like, "Dad's good, but we can do things ourselves."
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
that's when you say you're being a role model for your kids. Same. They're
Mm-hmm.
watching us and they learn through watching us. Now, we can preach at them,
Mm-hmm.
scream at them, and they
Oh,
turn it
100%.
off button. Off button. And when they see us, they light up because they're like, I can do this. My mom does it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Right? It's a
exactly.
different kind of proud. And that also fuels us, because all of a sudden they're listening to us now. We have their
Mm-hmm.
attention.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I
Mm-hmm.
love that. I loved talking to you, Vanny. I loved sharing your story and your vulnerability, because it's important as women, no matter where we come from, but let's talk about it. Let's
Mm-hmm.
share our
Exactly.
struggles, because there's a woman out there you're gonna resonate with, struggling today. They
Mm-hmm.
want to, they don't, they need to know our journey. They may see us, oh, we're doing a podcast, all this. but they don't know the sweat and the crying and the fear and all the nights and the jobs that we had to do to get here. And you inspired me. Like, this podcast is inspired by a few integral women in my life, and you being one of them, because watching you do
Aw.
it, I was like, I don't know how, but I know I can do this. Just like I
Mhm.
didn't want to run in the
Yeah, you
snow,
figure
but
it
you're
out.
like, you're gonna meet me at 5 o'clock, right? Reet, we're gonna run 5 o'clock. We're running in the snow, and I'm like, I can't say no. I said yes, so I show up.
Uh-huh.
What I
Uh-huh.
didn't realize then, that was training me to do the hard things now. That was training me to do
Mm-hmm.
the hard things now, and we've been training our whole lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm honored to be on this journey, to be training for all the hard things, but
Aw.
all the fun things with you. And
Yeah, and all
laughing,
the
right?
big
Like laughing,
things.
crying, big things. And wait till what I'm going to make you do when you get to Hawaii. I
Oh
got a little
goodness.
secret sauce. I'm not going to make you, but I'm going to, I'm
uh,
going to gently
well, I'm
encourage you,
down.
because I
I'm
know you
down.
will.
Yeah.
That's my girl right there. You'll say yes to it. And you're like, I'm in, let's go.
Yeah.
You always have been.
You
You
know
always
me.
have been. Yeah. And you know me, I'll be right there with you, and I'm gonna be like, okay, I don't know how, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah,
honored to have you
exactly.
on this podcast and share your story. Please, can you share where the audience and the guests can find your podcast, where they can link up with
Mm-hmm.
you, or if they have any questions, please let us know.
Yeah. So my podcast is called KHMER VOICES, and I'm available. It's available on all the major audio platforms. So I'm not on YouTube. I don't do video. I don't have the capacity to do video. But yes, find me on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or all the other ones. Or you can follow me on Instagram at My Voices. I'm also on TikTok, but I don't really, I'm not on there as much as Instagram. And where else am I on? You can connect with me on LinkedIn too if you want to see what my work history is like.
Do you have a website?
Oh, I do, but you know what? I do, but it's got to be revamped. You can go vannyw.com, but I want it to be more focused on my podcast as opposed to my work history. Like that was a website that I developed years ago for just, you know, showcasing my portfolio in marketing. So it's not relevant to my podcast right now, and I'm revamping it so it becomes more relevant to my podcast. I just haven't had the time to work on the copywriting yet.
Somebody's going to look at that website and see where you came from, and now your
Yeah.
evolution, and that's an important journey we celebrate.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you for having me on the show. And I look forward to listening to not only this one, but your other ones too. And really excited about you launching it.
Oh, I'm excited to have you in Hawaii, because we're going to record it live too. This was a
Oh
I
goodness.
think it was
Yeah.
a great preparatory for your podcast tomorrow, for us to kind of both touch on a nerve of immigrants, and it's part of our healing journey, and also evolving. And there's some good content here on just self-discovery. And no, I'm just grateful you came, and it's all about learning and evolving. It's, done is better than none.
Mm-hmm.
And whether the
Exactly.
audio and the video freezes, that's not something we can control. But you know what? We never quit.
Mm-hmm.
We never shut it down and say, oh, this is not going to work. We keep showing up
Mm-hmm.
regardless of
Mm-hmm.
what the circumstances are. We're innovators. We love the challenge, and we
Mm-hmm.
have a dream, and we're creating it. Like, we are literally in real
Yeah.
time creating it.
I mean, I think your podcast is gonna affect resonate with a lot of women too. And I'm excited to see where it takes you as well, because you're not just focused on your sole focus isn't only on helping women in general, but you want to talk about like menopause and the stuff that women don't even really know about, right? And that's an important
No.
part of our lives. So yeah, I look forward to learning from you, because I think I'm
And
going to
you know
get
what?
there soon too.
You're already in it. But what you don't realize is perimenopause can almost start at 35. And
Mm,
I'm excited to share the resources that the psychologists, the counselors, the healers, the facilitators are offering to. I didn't have that. I had to go around the world to
Mm-hmm.
find all of these. And so I get to come to one spot and say, hey, you're struggling? Here's some options. Listen, like, so that's been put on my heart for a reason. And I know I love getting the clarity of living my mission in real life. I'm going after it with full
Yay.
force, and I think we inspire others to do that when we do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We truly
Exactly.
inspire others to do that when we take action and don't allow our situation or where we came from to stop us. We use that as leverage. We use that as our launching point and being like, I don't have to disown that. That was a huge important part of my life that made me who I am. All those dozen jobs that it gave me a skill, boosted me up. I
Mm-hmm.
confidence. I learned more
Mm-hmm.
skills. I learned adaptability. I learned we. It's not even about the I. It's as women. Everywhere I go, we. It's funny. Not a lot of women have jobs unless they're even doctors now. They're evolving constantly. They switch, and I love that. That at any age, anytime, you can
Mm-hmm.
pivot and change your career and
Mm-hmm.
start something like totally wild. You're not, you
Yeah.
don't have to
Yeah.
do what somebody told you had to do.
Exactly.
But I love it. I'm grateful for this episode. I think there's going to be such great stuff here. And I hope everyone listen to Reignite with Reet, listen to KHMER Voices. Please like, subscribe, share. And we're honored to have Vanny Whitchelo here. And just watch out, world. Watch out, because big things are happening. We're gonna just keeping ourselves and expanding and healing and creating and empowering other women to take action on their dreams.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Sarip tu.